and welcome to The Wise Fool. It's so great to have you here. This is Mickey, and I have a great story for you today. So sit back and relax as you hear The Leprechaun and the Thing That Stole Everything Useful. In the village of Drumhollow, where the hills rolled like they were eavesdropping, and nothing ever stayed a secret for long, there lived a leprechaun named Tig O'Twist, a creature widely known for his cleverness, his confidence, and his remarkable ability to make situations worse while insisting he had improved them. Tig liked to think of himself as a strategist. Everyone else thought of him as a problem. Unfortunately, on the morning the story begins, Drumhollow had a problem big enough that even Tig couldn't ignore it. Overnight, every useful thing in the village had vanished. Not just a few misplaced tools or stolen loaf of bread, everything useful. Hammers, nails, cooking pots, buckets, even the blacksmith's tongs had disappeared without a trace, leaving the village in a state of stunned, slightly offended confusion. Lorcan Hill stood in the doorway of his forge, staring at the empty racks where his tools had been the night before. "Well," he said slowly, "this feels personal." "It's not personal," Nessa Byrne replied, though her arms were crossed tightly enough to suggest she was taking it personally anyway. "It's disastrous." Tig, who had been listening behind a barrel for several minutes, popped up with a grin that immediately made things worse. "It's fascinating," he said. Nessa didn't even look at him. "If you say the word fascinating one more time, I'm going to throw something at you." "With what?" Tig asked, spreading his arms. "Everything useful has been stolen, remember?" Lorcan tried not to laugh, which only made Nessa more irritated. It didn't take long before someone noticed the tracks. They began just beyond the edge of the village, pressed deep into the earth, as though something heavy had dragged its way through the night. The marks were uneven and strange, not quite like wheels, and not quite like feet, and they led straight through the hills, where the ground dipped into a narrow, shadowed valley. Nessa crouched to examine them, brushing dirt aside with careful fingers. "Whatever this is," she said, "it didn't come quietly." Lorcan nodded, already rolling up his sleeves as though the solution might involve wrestling the problem directly. "Then we follow it." Tig made a thoughtful sound, which in his case meant he was about to disagree in the most annoying way possible. "Or," he said, stepping lightly over the tracks, "we don't follow the mysterious trail left by something strong enough to steal an entire village's worth of tools." Nessa stood. "Afraid?" "I'm not afraid," Tig replied immediately, straightening his coat. "I am simply gifted with excellent judgment, which you are currently ignoring." "Your excellent judgment involves hiding behind barrels," Nessa said. "That was a tactical observation," Tig snapped, "very advanced." Before the argument could escalate further, something shoved past them. Muirin, the goat. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never once asked permission for anything in her life, trotting straight over the tracks and continuing through the hills as though she had decided personally the investigation would proceed. Lorcan blinked. "Is she coming with us?" "She's not with us," Nessa said. "She's doing whatever she wants, as usual." Tig watched the goat disappear ahead of them and sighed. "Excellent," he muttered. "We're being led by a goat. This is already going very well." Despite Tig's ongoing complaints and his repeated suggestions that they should turn back, regroup, and perhaps let someone else handle the problem, they followed the tracks into the valley. The air there felt heavier, quieter, as though the wind had decided not to get involved. The ground sloped inward, and the marks in the dirt grew deeper and more chaotic, eventually leading them to a wide hollow scattered with things, their things. Buckets lay tipped on their sides. Tools were piled in uneven heaps. Pots, pans, and pieces of metal glinted in the dim light, all gathered together in a strange, disordered horde. In the middle of it all was the thief. It was large and lumpy, made almost entirely of bits and pieces of metal. Hinges, nails, handles, broken tools, held together in a shape that suggested a creature, but didn't quite commit to one. It shifted as they watched, rearranging itself with slow, clinking movements. Lorcan stared. That's not normal. Insightful, Tig said quietly, though even he sounded less confident than usual. Nessa stepped forward slightly. What is it? Tig hesitated, which was rare enough to be noticeable. It's a collector, he said at last. A sort of wandering thing that gathers what it thinks is valuable and keeps it. It thinks our tools are valuable? It thinks they're useful, Ty corrected. And it doesn't like letting go of useful things. They stood there for a moment, watching the creature shift and settle among its stolen collection. All right, Lorcan said, already stepping forward. We go in, we take everything back. No, Ty cut in sharply. Nessa raised an eyebrow. What now? You can't just walk up to it, Tig said. It'll defend its hoard. So we do nothing? Lorcan asked. I didn't say that, Tig replied. I said we do something smarter. Nessa crossed her arms. Which is? Tig opened his mouth, paused, closed it again. I'm working on it, he said. Of course you are, Nessa muttered. It was the goat who made the decision for them. She wandered straight into the pile of stolen goods and began chewing on a rope. The creature reacted instantly, its metal form tightening and shifting towards her with a sharp, scraping sound. Oh, that's bad, Lorcan said. Or, Tig said, eyes lighting up, that's useful. Nessa looked at him. You're not about to base a plan on a goat, are you? I'm not basing it on the goat, Tig said. I'm adapting to the goat, which is very different and much more impressive. The idea, as Tig explained it, was simple in theory and deeply questionable in practice. While the creature was distracted, trying to keep track of Modine, who had begun enthusiastically knocking things over for no clear reason, they would rush in, grab as many tools as possible, and drag them back out of the valley. Fast, efficient, brilliant, Tig concluded. Risky, chaotic, and mostly your fault if it fails, Nessa replied. Details. They moved anyway. Lorcan darted forward first, grabbing a bundle of tools and hauling them back. Nessa followed, quicker and more precise, pulling smaller items from the edges of the pile. Tig hovered just long enough to look like he was helping before actually grabbing what he could. For a moment, it worked. Then, the creature noticed. The metal shape rose, towering slightly as it shifted its weight, and let out a long grinding sound as it turned toward them. That's our cue to leave, Lorcan said. Not yet, Tig replied, scanning the scattered pile. He grabbed a handful of loose nails and tossed them far across the hollow. The creature's head, if it had a head, jerked towards the sound. Then, Tig threw a hammer in the opposite direction, then a bucket. Each time, the creature followed, pulled by the instinct to gather and protect. Realization spread across Nessa's face. You're distracting it, she said. I'm outthinking it, Tig corrected, already reaching for another object. With the creature scrambling to collect the scattered pieces, the others worked faster, dragging tools, buckets, and armfuls of supplies back towards the edge of the valley. Maureen, for her part, sprinted out at the last minute with the rope still in her mouth, looking extremely pleased with herself. By the time the creature had gathered enough of its hoard to notice what was missing, they were already halfway up the hill. It let out a frustrated, rattling sound, but it didn't follow. Without a full collection, it seemed unsure, unstable, and finally it sank back into the hollow, clinging to what it had left. Back in the village, the return of tools was met with cheers, relief, and immediate arguments over who had done the most work. "That went well," Lorcan said, setting down a bundle. "That went barely well," Nessa corrected. "That went exactly as I had planned," Tige said. They both turned to him. "You didn't have a plan," Nessa said. "I had the idea of a plan," Tige replied, "which is more important." Lorcan laughed. "You only figured it out halfway through. That," Tige said, lifting his chin, "is called adaptability." As things settled, the four of them stood at the edge of the village. The goat was attempting to eat a piece of rope again. Nessa sighed. "We are not doing that again." "We are absolutely doing that again," Tige said. Lorcan grinned. "Next time, we start with a plan." Tige considered that. No," he said. "That feels restrictive." If you ever visit a place where things tend to disappear without explanation, don't assume it's simple. It might be something strange. It might be something clever. Or it might be a leprechaun, a stubborn girl, an overly confident blacksmith, and a goat who refuses to follow instructions, arguing their way into fixing it.